Have you ever really thought about an apple? They're everywhere. In our lunchboxes on teachers' desks, piled high at the grocery store entrance. They're even in our language. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. The apple of my eye. They feel so deeply rooted in our culture. So American. But what if I told you almost everything we think we know about apples is wrong? The story of the apple doesn't start in an American orchard or a European field. It begins thousands of years ago in the mountains of Central Asia, in what is now Kazakhstan. Imagine vast, wild forests, not of pine or oak, but of apple trees. These weren't the uniform, shiny apples we see today. The fruit from these wild trees was a genetic lottery. Some were small and sweet, others large and bitter. Many were so sour they were practically inedible. It was a chaotic, unpredictable landscape of flavor. But this very inconsistency, tea's wildness, turned out to be the apple's greatest superpower. Here's the crazy part. Apples don't grow true from seed. If you take a seed from your favorite Honeycrisp apple and plant it, the tree that grows will produce apples that taste completely different. Every single apple seed is a brand new genetic experiment, a roll of the dice. You almost never get the same apple twice. This genetic quirk forced humans to intervene. Our ancestors couldn't just plant seeds and hope for the best. To preserve the apples, they actually liked the sweet, crisp, or flavorful ones. They had to get clever. They developed a technique called grafting. It's a simple but brilliant idea. You take a branch, or a scion, from a tree that produces delicious fruit and attach it to the root system, or rootstock, of another tree. The branch then grows, and since it's genetically identical to the parent tree, it produces the exact same type of apple. Think about that for a second. Every single Granny Smith apple you've ever eaten is a clone. Every Fuji, every Gala, every Red Delicious, they are all genetically identical copies, propagated through grafting from a single, original tree that someone, somewhere, decided was worth saving. So, paradoxically, the incredible variety of apples we see today exists only because we learned how to clone them. Without grafting, your favorite apple variety would have been a one-time wonder, lost to history. As people began to travel, so did the apple. It moved west along ancient trade routes like the Silk Road, carried by merchants, soldiers, and nomads. With each new region it entered, the apple adapted. It changed to suit new climates and, more importantly, new human tastes. When it arrived in Europe, particularly in places like France and England, the apple found a new and vital purpose. Cider? For centuries, hot cider wasn't just a popular beverage. It was a lifesaver. In a time before reliable water purification, clean drinking water was a luxury. Rivers and wells were often contaminated with pathogens that could make you sick or worse. But the fermentation process used to make cider kill those dangerous microbes. Cider was a safe, stable, and relatively nutritious source of hydration. It was consumed by everyone: men, women, and even children. Apples weren't just a fruit. They were a public health solution. So when European colonists set sail for North America, they didn't forget to pack their apples. But they weren't bringing them over for a healthy snack. They were bringing them for booze. Early American settlers weren't interested in planting orchards for fresh eating. They were building a cider economy. Apples were perfectly suited to the new continent. They thrived in the temperate climate, required far less work to cultivate than grains like barley for beer, and could be stored for months. Apples also played a fascinating role in the expansion of the United States. In many areas, planting an orchard was considered legal proof of land improvement. To claim a piece of land on the frontier, you had to demonstrate that you were cultivating it. Planting a few dozen apple trees was one of the easiest ways to do that. The apple became a tool of settlement, a quiet engine of manifest destiny. And this brings us to a figure we all think we know. Johnny Appleseed. The popular image is of a kind man in a pot hat, wandering the countryside, spreading seeds to grow sweet, red apples for children. The reality is a bit more complex and a lot more interesting. His real name was John Chapman, and he was a savvy businessman. He wasn't planting random seeds. He was establishing nurseries of cider apple trees. These apples were small, bitter, and tannic, perfect for fermenting into hard cider, but terrible for eating raw. Chapman would get ahead of the wave of westward expansion, plant his nurseries, and and then sell the young trees to incoming settlers. He wasn't just a folk hero, he was a pioneer of the American alcohol industry, laying the groundwork for self-sufficient frontier communities. For over a century, America ran on cider. But then, in 1920, everything changed with Prohibition. The nationwide ban on alcohol production was devastating for the apple industry. The demand for cider apples evaporated almost overnight. Orchards full of bitter, tannic varieties became worthless. Suddenly, the only apples that mattered were the ones you could eat fresh. This was a massive turning point. The focus shifted entirely to dessert apples. Commercial growers began a ruthless selection process. Flavor was no longer the top priority. Instead, they looked for apples that were visually perfect, with bright, uniform color. They needed apples that were durable enough to withstand being shipped thousands of miles, and had a long shelf life. They wanted consistency. This is how we ended up with a modern supermarket apple. Varieties like the Red Delicious, which looked beautiful and traveled well, but often tasted bland and mealy, came to dominate the market. Thousands of older, more flavorful, and more interesting heritage varieties were ripped out and forgotten, nearly lost forever. For decades, the American apple aisle became a sea of sameness. A handful of varieties, all bred for looks and logistics, pushed everything else out. But thankfully, that's not the end of the story. In recent years, there's been a growing rebellion against the tyranny of the supermarket apple. People are rediscovering the incredible diversity of heritage varieties. Small orchards, farmers markets, and cider makers are bringing back apples with names like East Black Oxford and Ashmead's Kernel apples, with complex, intense flavors that tell a story of a place and a time. The journey of the apple is a story of adaptation, not just of the fruit, but of our relationship with it. It became a staple not because it was perfect, but because it was flexible. It could be eaten fresh, baked into pies, dried for the winter, or fermented into a safe and valuable drink. It fit into our farms, our myths, our medicine, and our marketing. That phrase, "an apple a day," was one of the most successful branding campaigns in history, long before the concept of branding even existed. The apple's ultimate triumph isn't its taste or its nutritional value. Its ability to weave itself so completely into the fabric of our daily lives that we stopped even noticing it. It became ordinary. And in becoming ordinary, it became powerful. A wild, unpredictable fruit from the mountains of Kazakhstan that refuses to grow the same way twice, forced us to become inventors and cultivators. In return, it conquered the world. One lunchbox, one cider barrel, and one clone at a time. So, the next time you pick up an apple, take a moment. You're not just holding a piece of fruit. You're holding a piece of human history.